Okay, is this thing on? Okay, I think it's on. Good evening, family. I wanted to address there's a couple of incidents that took place, uh, that were publicly, the videos and the footage have gone viral. The man who was minding his business who got assaulted by a member of law enforcement. I want to just say this short and quick. This is not just for people of color to remember. Everybody should remember this. Individuals who wear a uniform and a badge, those are people. They're not the one who created human life and the earth and, the solar system and everything. These are human beings. When they do something wrong, it is actually wrong. Just because you have on a badge and it doesn't mean that you get to do that. That needs to be addressed. Everybody, just because you put on a uniform doesn't mean that what your behavior is not criminal. That needs to be addressed. The badge, it doesn't matter. You were a human being before you learned how to read. You were a human being before you were trained. You were a human being first. That's how you started. That's your heritage. You are a person first. And lacking humanity, if your job requires that you lack humanity, change occupation. Okay? Change occupation. Also, and I've been avoiding the footage of the man who was murdered by the two gunmen, minding his business, jogging, doing something healthy, yay, minding his business in Georgia, and murdered for no reason. And I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. But the tendency of this government in this society, it doesn't seem to be very consistent in terms of humanity and justice. It's not a little one-sided. It's very one-sided. I want you to consider that the whole way of life that involves being a racist or thinking that another so-called race is less than. This whole concept, babies are not born feeling like this. It's taught to them. This way of thinking would have been none died out if there weren't so many people, generation after generation, who were committed to teaching this to their children. And it keeps happening. That's why there are people today that honestly think it's okay to treat someone who looks a little different brutally, to murder them, to treat them like they're not a person. This is why it keeps happening. If you continue to teach and reinforce even the garbage that was taught to you, if you pass it down, even if it's complicity, meaning just, turning and allowing stuff that you see that's wrong, if you see it happening and not even addressing it and not teaching your children at the same time to address it and say, hey, don't do that. That's wrong. And take a stand on it. We take stands for, women's rights and, for animal rights, God help us if it had been a dog, which I love animals, I do. If it had been a dog who was shot down in the street like that, all hell would have broken loose. The people involved would have been arrested, and protesters would have been out. It would have been complete madness. I wonder why a person of color doesn't get the same attention. I wonder. No, I don't. I know what it is. It's uncomfortable because if you have to address the fact that this happens, now you got to go back for centuries and centuries of, oh, well, this happened also. Well, we got to address that. If we never get to addressing the fact of this big elephant in the room, of this horrendous way of treating people, if it never gets addressed, it's going to stay and it's going to continue to fester. And it's going to continue to make our society sick. If we're going to get this, if we're going to have any chance of dismantling this, we've got to address it head on. It has to happen. And there's no better time than now. There's no better time than now. I'm not with the COVID-19. Obviously, I don't want anybody to be harmed. I don't want anybody to get sick. I don't want anybody to die of this, I will say, again, this infectious particle without a brain, part of the reason why it has sort of outsmarted our species to some degree is because there are human beings with brains who are committed to chaos, who are committed to barbarism, who are committed to just absolute illogical practice. We can't actually eat the money. See, economics means nothing if you're dead. You go to a graveyard and go and interview the people who are laying in the ground and ask them, what their stocks look like. How much have they spent? How much did they earn? They're really not interested. They don't have much to say. They don't have anything to say about that. We don't get to actually take the money with us. Okay? All we have is each other. We have got to stop with the foolishness and allowing economics to trump humanity. That has to stop. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. And there's only a handful of them. There's 320 million of us. I don't know. People can't count. My hat's off to the leaders who have been using their influence and their resources to try to help and really help, and even putting their necks on the lines. I got a lot of respect for that, and for the frontliners. There's 320 million of us. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm thinking I'm gonna have to get back to work right now because it's getting late, and I do not want to be up until tomorrow morning. Peace, love, blessings to everybody. And I think it was James Baldwin. He said, what did he say? White Americans need to ask themselves, why did they need a nigger in the first place? Because I'm not a nigger. I'm a man. Why did you need it? You invented it. I didn't invent it. I didn't invent this. We did not invent this. Why did you need it in the first place? And what the hell is it? If you can answer that question honestly, maybe some of this dismantling can start happening. Love and blessings to all the allies and to all the family who have not allowed the legacies of racism to disconnect us. To everybody else, I need to add you up and kick in because y'all acting real stupid. Good night.